Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to MST.TV. This is Nishi here bringing you all another Market Watch episode. So now that we've all had a chance to sit down with the most recent ban list and kind of look at how the format is shaping up, we are starting to see some new trends develop on the market. Obviously, while some things may be very similar to last format, players have had to make a lot of changes to their decks, combos, and strategies based on the cards that are now available to them. This, combined with a lot of the hype for some of the up-and-coming strategies that are due to get support in the OCG in the near future, is causing a ton of movement on the market. So we are back here again, bringing you all of the information about the price updates that you need to be aware of. Let's get started. First up, let's take a look at Heretic Seal of the Heavenly Spheres. So on the most recent ban list, Dragon Link is a strategy that actually wasn't hit at all, which is something that I found kind of surprising. It was a borderline meta strategy last format, hovering around that tier 1.5 range, and with no direct hits to Dragon Link, but lots of hits to other decks. It should come as no surprise that Dragon Link is emerging as a top contender yet again this format. Now, believe it or not, one of the cards that is starting to climb up in price as a result of this is Heretic Seal. This card was only around $2 to $3 for quite some time, but is now all the way up at $8 a piece. This is a really key card for the strategy as it provides a form of interruption during your opponent's turn and can also special summon a monster out of the deck. Alternatively, one really cool interaction is that you can equip a key hand trap to a monster of yours via Union Carrier, such as Effect Veiler or Artifact Lancia, and then use the seal to bounce that card to your hand to hit your opponent with on their turn. Really interesting tech. Shout out to my friend Darren for telling me about that one. But yeah, with just the one printing, this card could actually potentially rise in value to around maybe the $15 mark if Dragon Link starts to become a clear favorite this format. Otherwise, it is very likely to float back and forth between the $5 to $10 range, depending on just how much interest there is in the deck. Next up, let's take a look at Mecha Phantom Beast Hamstrat. So with the banning of O-Lion and Jet Synchron, people are having to get a little bit more creative with the combos that they're pulling off using Halki Fibrax and Auroradon. Now, one of the main combo pieces is Colt Wing, which we did talk about before, a card used in conjunction with the Deskbot engine. Well, apparently there is another alternative available, one that uses Hamstrat, which lets you tribute a token to summon out a Mecha Phantom Beast from your graveyard. Interestingly enough, you can bring back Auroradon and then reuse its effect to summon another Mecha Phantom Beast out of your deck, since apparently that effect isn't a hard once per turn. So you can bring out Arrowsgwyn from the deck, and by going down that route, you can actually turn Hamstrat and Arrowsgwyn into true King of all Calamities, which is kind of an interesting play. Anyways, I don't know how exactly consistent this line of play is, since it does mean you have to run the two Mecha Phantom Beast brick monsters in your deck, but I guess the option is there. The only price jump that we've seen related to this combo is, of course, the price of Ultimate Rare Hamstrat, which has been mostly disappearing from the market, with the only copies available sitting at $9 for the Ultimate Rare Unlimited and $20 for the Ultimate Rare First Edition. Personally, I think that this combo seems a little bit too bricky for my liking, and I don't think it's actually going to catch on or see too much meta play. I would definitely recommend selling off the Ultimate Rares if you happen to have them. If you really want to try the combo out, just play the Ultra Rare or Common, either of which you should be able to pick up for under $1. Now we are on to Ronin Toten, which is kind of like an odd card to see here. With Totally Awesome going to 2 on the most recent ban list, people are looking at what decks have the potential to abuse the multiple negates that you can set up using the Frog engine. This could potentially be a strong engine in something like Mermails, which always seems to pop up as a rogue contender every now and then at the beginning of formats. Alternatively, I think some people might be looking at Paleo Frogs, though I don't know just how viable they would actually be with something like Harpy's Feather Duster in the game. Anyways, we've already noticed a jump in the price of Totally Awesome itself, which we covered earlier this week, but there are also some smaller price jumps with some of the other related cards. Most notably is Ronin Toten, a key card for the Frog engine that allows you to repeatedly summon itself out of the graveyard by banishing a frog. This allows you to dump it, summon it out, and then use it as an Xyz material for Totally Awesome. This card actually only has 2 printings available, both of which are relatively expensive for what they are. The Super Rares from OTS Tournament Pack 4, which is the only holo print, is around $16 each, lowest on TCG Player at the moment, and even the commons are up at $4 each. Personally, I'm not expecting Frogs to do much this format moving forward, so I would be moving any copies of Ronin Toten that I have at this hyped up price, though I do of course understand if you are a dedicated Frog player and you want to hold on to your set. So this is an interesting one that has popped up in the past as well. It is Evil Swarm Nightmare. So specifically we're looking at the dual terminal version, which is currently $30 lowest on TCG Player at the moment. This is a potentially useful option in dark rank 4 decks. So with the Phantom Knight and Raid Raptor support coming out in Phantom Rage, there is potential for this card to see an increase in play. Its effect allows you to essentially Book of Moon your opponent's monster when that monster is special summoned. This is cool because while it's useless against links, it is very useful against the various combo decks that we see running around the format, as you using Nightmare to flip down something like Genba or Plague Spreader Zombie basically prevents your opponent from comboing off and potentially ends their turn, so your opponent is forced to answer this card before proceeding with their combo. It's also worth noting that this card's effect isn't a once per turn, so with 2 materials, that is potentially 2 disruptions that you have to flip on your opponent. For now, it is just the DT versions that are expensive. You can still pick up supers or commons for under $1 or so. I would definitely sell the DTs. I would only be paying around $10, maybe $15 if you really want a copy of the DT version, and look at picking up supers for under $1 or so before they have a chance to spike up in price. So following the reveal of the Armed Dragon support coming out in Blazing Vortex, we're just starting to get leaks of some of the other cards and archetypes that will be coming out in the booster set after Phantom Rage. One of these archetypes is the Wind Witches, which were a pretty underutilized archetype here in the TCG. I believe they were first hyped up because of the play that they saw in the OCG alongside the Invoked, and although the deck was solid here, it was never really seeing as much play here as it did over there. Now, however, we have new support cards coming out in Blazing Vortex, so people are potentially looking at using the Wind Witches as an engine once again. Now, of the 3 cards that are used in the main deck, Ice Bell was the one that you actually ran 3 of, but it was reprinted as a secret rare in Shadows in Valhalla, so it is actually available for just $1 or so, no real concerns there. However, between Glass Bell and Snowbell, Snowbell is just a one of, so Glass Bell is the one that has gotten the most attention recently. Both of these cards are only available as Ultras from the original set, and then commons in an OTS tournament pack, so the Ultras are the highest and only holo rarity. Glassbell is still an important card because on summon you get to add any other Wind Witch monster from your deck to your hand, which is kinda cool. Although being relatively cheap before, you are now looking at $8 a piece for the ultra rare and $3 for the common, which is a fair bit since you used to be able to pick up the ultras for just a couple of bucks each. Definitely an engine that I think is worth keeping an eye on. If you have some, I think I would keep maybe a set of each card and then look at offloading the rest between now and the release of Blazing Vortex. It isn't really a huge priority at the moment because we haven't seen a huge out of nowhere significant price spike, but I would also definitely dig up the commons if you can and look at offloading those. This one is kind of funny to me. We just had the first few new cards from the Ice Barrier structure deck announced, and so far the cards do look okay. I think it's really just the synchro that's kind of game changing, but with it of course, we got a couple of new Ice Barrier main deck monsters which, while maybe not being as broken as people were hoping, still look like a decent boost to the archetype, especially compared to some of the support that they got before. Of course, there's still cards that haven't been revealed yet, so it's definitely possible that some of those cards will be enough to make Ice Barriers a meta-relevant strategy, as weird as that is to say. One of the cards that has spiked in anticipation of this is Medallion of the Ice Barrier, which literally just lets you search for any Ice Barrier monster from your deck. There's no once per turn restriction, no level restriction, nothing. Of course, Medallion will likely be a 3 of in the Ice Barrier deck with all of the new support cards. However, Medallion only has the 1 printing and it is from the infamous set Starstrike Blast, a set from which cards are known to spike in value out of nowhere because there was such limited availability of them. Now, of course, I think that most people would assume that if we were to get an Ice Barrier structure deck released here in the TCG, there will be a reprint of Medallion of the Ice Barrier included. Of course, this is never a guarantee, so I guess some people feel like they should be safe and pick up their original copies now, and this is a little bit of a scramble. Medallions are now $3 a piece. Personally, I think it's a no-brainer that it will be reprinted there, but it is definitely possible that it could be excluded, so take my words with a grain of salt there. Realistically, I think that the smart thing to do would just be to move your copies within the next couple of weeks after a few more Ice Barrier cards are revealed as people panic and buy into that initial hype. So one other archetype that is getting support in Blazing Vortex is the Fabled archetype. This is a fairly old archetype that revolves around discarding cards in order to trigger their effects, and by getting your hand size down, you also get the ability to draw into more cards that you can hopefully discard. Now, so far, the Fabled stuff does look pretty solid. I think that the new main deck monsters that the archetype got are actually really good additions, but one big thing to keep in mind also is that the Danger Engine now exists, which could be a very big boost for the deck that allows you to draw additional cards and provides you an additional discard outlet. Now, that being said, I think that some people are pretty excited for the new support, and the Fableds, being a dual terminal archetype, have lots of DT versions of cards that are going to be susceptible to price bumps. One of the most notable ones is Fabled Ragin, a level 5 synchro monster that requires a Fabled tuner in order to make. Now, with this card, when it is synchro summoned, if you have 0 or 1 cards in your hand, you get to draw until you have 2 cards in hand. This is a really solid effect, especially if you have something like TG Hyper Librarian on the field. You can draw into multiple cards. Also worth noting is that it isn't even a once per turn effect, and in Fabled you can very easily summon multiple level 5 monsters every single turn. So for this card, we are now looking at a whopping $60 for the dual terminal version and $9 for the secret rare, and those are the only 2 prints of this card available. Personally, I think that it's kind of inevitable that these cards will settle back down in price over the next couple of months as some of the hype dies down, because as interesting as the Fabled stuff is, I don't think it's quite enough for the deck to compete with something like Infernoble Knights or Eldritch or anything like that, so I would wait to see those dips before buying in, even if you want to play the deck. And the last card that I briefly want to mention here is Supreme King Dragon Darkworm. So this is a card that I think has kind of gone under the radar recently, but is definitely something that I think we'll start to see a bit more play from moving forward. The idea is that this card is free advantage, right? As a level 4 body that you can get onto the board extremely easily by dumping it with Dragon Shrine or Foolish Burial, and then you also get to search for the Gate 0 or the Infinity, which could potentially be either a Pendulum Scale or free discard fodder. This card is extremely free, and as it's a dragon, I think that it is a card that could see some play from something like Dragon Link moving forward as the deck grows and evolves. But of course it is also a pendulum monster, so depending on what we see from pendulums moving forward, it could be a useful card in there as well. Remember, they just got Double Iris off the ban list, which could be a sign that more and more cards will slowly be taken off the list, though Electromite is realistically going to stay banned forever. The secret rare version of this card is what I would pay attention to, which is the only holo version of this card, up at $7 a piece at the moment, which feels a little bit higher than what I remember. I think it was $3 to $5 not that long ago. I think that it is, at the very least, a card you should have on your radar. You can consider picking this up if you can get it for relatively cheap in a trade or something. At one point, Darkworm was among the best free opening combo starters in the game, and even though it has fallen off a bit as of late, it's still looking like a really solid potential option for the future. Alright guys, that is it for today's Market Watch episode. We are now at a point where the market and the meta are going to be changing very rapidly, with people learning and trying to solve the format and the effects that that has on the market, as well as with all of the new products and cards that are being introduced both here and in the OCG. Definitely a good time to keep your eyes peeled for what's ahead so that you guys know what cards you need to pick up so that you can either sell them off in the future or have them ready for yourself to use. Anyways guys, if you did enjoy today's Market Watch, please be sure to hit that thumbs up button for me. Also, make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what else is going on with the market, maybe something I didn't cover in today's episode, so I can cover it in a future episode as well. And of course, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button to get all of the latest content from both me and Tombox here on the channel. And until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.